Hello and welcome to the video. In this video we're going to take a look at this model here. This is the newly updated Hobby King Bixler 1.1 EPO glider. Wingspan just like the original of 1400mm and about 74-75 pounds. And for that you get everything you're going to need apart from a battery and a receiver, and you're going to need your radio as well, obviously. But this is an updated version of one of my favourite planes from Hobby King. Now there's an awful lot of Bixlers on the Hobby King website. There's this one, there's the version 2 and also the version 3. And I did a video comparing the V2 and the V3 back, I think it was about December 2017. I put a link here so that you can go and have a look. But this is a resurrection of the very first version, but it's not identical. Like some other planes that have been released recently from Hobby King, this just isn't a pretty new paint scheme. They've actually changed the mold a little bit as well. So in this video what I'll do is talk about the specs, we'll do the unboxing, show you how it is to build, relatively straightforward and easy, and then I'll take it out in the field and I'll actually show you the video from my maiden flight, the very first time that I threw this Bixler up in the air, and hopefully it'll give you an idea of how easy these things are to fly. Because they are easy to fly. The great thing about the Bixler is it is incredibly stable and gives an awful lot of confidence. I learned to fly on a Bixler, and a lot of my friends who have got into radio control because of my fanaticism about it have started with Bixlers as well. They fly almost like they have a stabilizer inside, but they don't. You can just throw them around, they'll fly forever. They are super floaty. They have a ridiculously good speed envelope. They will fly unbelievably slowly, and they've also got enough power for loops and rolls and aerobatics if you want to get a little bit carried away. Now this does behave more like a trainer, so if you are interested in getting to radio control, this is probably the plane that I'd point you towards. In fact, the Bixler is one of the planes that I talked about as part of my kit picks that I did back in summer, and this is probably the one, if you're looking to get into radio control, this would probably be one of my top 1 or top 2 to go and learn how to fly with. Very simple and easy to put together. When you open the box, all the decals are applied. The only thing you need to do is you need to put the little control horns actually on the control surfaces, and then pop the little control rods from the servos into those little control horns, and that's probably the trickiest part of the build. The tail is attached the same way as the Bixler tail always had. The horizontal stabilizer goes in first. I tend to use things like hot glue or goop or 5-minute epoxy for something like this. And then the vertical stabilizer kind of fits in over the top and holds everything together. And then you connect the control surfaces to the rudder and the elevator. The wings go together with a Y cable, and you'll have spotted that this is a little bit different from the original Bixler. They still push together in a very similar way. There's a big carbon rod that goes through it for strengthening. But this time the 2 retaining screws that keep it all together go in through the top rather than underneath, which I think is the way that how it was done in the very first Bixlers that I ever got. Beautiful clear canopy in this, and that paint scheme is really pretty, as we've already seen flying through the air. So setup is probably going to take you only half an hour, 45 minutes from start to finish, including setting up all the trims and the other bits and bobs on your radio. The motor in this seems to be a bit bigger than the one in the very original version of this model. It's a 2212 1900 kV brushless outrunner motor with a 6x4 inch prop, and it's got a 20 amp speed controller inside as well. And that gives a little bit more power than the original Bixler does, which has made it fun to fly. Manuals available from the Hobby King website, and it's very good. This manual has been around for a long time. It's been updated with the new graphics. Central gravity seems spot on, so if you put it where it is in the manual, you shouldn't go too far wrong. And let's get back to some flying footage. What is it like to fly? Well, as I said, this is on a beautiful calm day. I'm actually using my X-Lite FR Sky radio here just to see how easy it is to use with a plane, and the good news is it actually works okay. You can see, as usual, the Bixler just wants to be in the air, and with a little bit of trimming I had to add a little bit of down elevator here. The nose wanted to pop up, and a little bit of right aileron. So I think that's just to combat the torque of the motor. It flew itself pretty much, and I was having a whale of a time. This is a very still bright morning here in the UK. Autumn is on its way, and I was just having a whale of a time, and flying at about 10-15% throttle, it is very happy indeed. It'll pootle around at that throttle level for absolutely forever. But if you open the throttle, then you can get it to do loops and rolls, and you can get some aerobatics out of it too. That nice big size, that kind of albatross profile, makes it very easy to keep track of orientation, particularly with those nice bright graphics on the top and those big black stripes underneath, which is the way Hobby King seem to do all their paint schemes now. As soon as you can see those black stripes, even at a distance, you know exactly which side of the plane that you're looking at. So rather than me cut away from this flying footage, let me just very quickly cover what's changed on this then. There's an improved motor in ESC, as we've always talked about. I do love that that clear canopy comes all ready to rock and roll. I think the whole sculpt of the nose is the same as the original Bixlers that were about, but it did seem a little bit more roomy. I didn't seem to have to fight as much to get the battery right in the nose. I'm running a 2200 3S in here and pushed right into the nose. It's getting the centre of gravity where it needs to be as per the manual. Again, a couple of things have changed. The wing screws for the retaining clips on top of the wings seem to have moved from the bottom to the top. There is underneath, let me show you this very quickly, an inspection hatch for the rear servos. Now before, you just had to kind of eyeball it and guess where the servos were. I love the fact that they've put this little hatch in the belly now, so when you're trying to 90-degree your servos, and again I put a link here for the video where I talk about simple plane setup. If you've never set up a plane before, it goes through each of the individual steps, but by having the hatch at the bottom, it makes it dead easy for the rudder and elevator. The new colour scheme is lovely. I'd also like one in black and orange as opposed to just a black and green. The only disappointing thing about this is that there's no flaps moulded into the wing. My first Bixler was the version after this that came with flaps, and those flaps can come in very handy indeed, particularly for landing. With this, there isn't that option, so I would consider putting flaperons on something like this, because bringing it into land, unless you know what you're doing, it just doesn't want to land. It's a very floaty model, and again, because it will fly so slowly, you have to work to get it onto the ground. So in summary, what do I like? Well, it's a Bixler. There isn't a lot to not like, really. For that kind of money, it's a classic model with better parts. It's fab for pretty much any pilot. I know beginner pilots who love it, and I know pilots like me who've been flying for a very long time who just find flying one of these very relaxing and very zen. If you are going to pop FPV canopy on it, and in fact I built my own to put on here, then it's a fab plane to FPV as well. Again, because it behaves almost like it has a stabilizer inside already. It's very easy to build and super easy to fly. You can do pretty much anything you want with it, including trying to take off water. Having that prop up on the back does mean that belly landing is the way you're going to do it, and it does protect the prop if you do come in and a slightly harder landing than you meant to. Couple of things though that aren't on this one just to consider. First of all is there aren't any flaps, as I've already mentioned, so do think about that. Have a look at my video on how to set up flaperons. I'm probably going to set it up on this just to help it slow down and try and reduce the length of the runway that I need to actually bring it down onto the grass. The other thing I spotted is they have removed the skid plate. The original ones had a plastic plate that was on the bottom at the front. That was good for protecting the foam if you were landing on something a little bit harder like gravel or concrete, so that's potentially going to get scuffed up. Hopefully they're going to add that back into the box, because I personally liked that little bit of extra protection at the bottom of the model. It also helped provide a little bit of additional support around the nose area, which tends to get crumpled if you tend to fly it into something. And do remember, when you're going to build this, there isn't a screwdriver or any glue or anything in the box as it comes, so you're going to have to get those couple of things to get this together to get it to fly. But out of all the Bixler family, this is probably one of my favourites. I love planes that when you go to maiden them, just go, yep, good, I'm fine, yep, okay, and just leap out your hand and start to fly around. Again, 10-15% throttle, you'll get easily best part of 20 minutes on that kind of battery, depending on how you fly. But you can also get to a decent height, cut the power, and kind of soar, or even do a bit of slope soaring with this model as well. It's very capable. It's one of the classics from Hobby King, and this latest version is definitely keeping up that fantastic tradition. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video, and particularly for watching right to the very end. We try and release a video on Tuesday and Friday, and sometimes we'll release one or two extra ones in a week as well. All of the videos on the channel are organised into easy to use playlists, so do have a look in there, because if you're interested in a subject, we organise all the videos on that subject so you can find them easily all together in one place. If you like what we're doing, then please like and subscribe and tell others about the channel so they can come and join as well. We're available in all of the usual social media places, particularly in places like Instagram, Twitter, and we also share all of our 3D designs on Thingiverse.